My graduation was supposed to be my moment of triumph, the day I'd stand tall after years of sacrifice. But in that crowded living room, surrounded by family and friends, my world unraveled. My father, Thane, stood by the fireplace, his face twisted with rage, clutching my Stanford diploma like a weapon. "You don't deserve this," he roared, demanding I surrender my grandfather's inheritance to my sister. As he held it over the flames, I watched my hard-earned future catch fire. My own parents turned my proudest day into a nightmare, betraying me in front of everyone I loved. For years, I was the invisible daughter, lost in my sister Sigrid's shadow. At 16, I'd sit alone in my dimly lit room, poring over books, chasing dreams of Stanford, while music blared from her parties downstairs. My parents excused her every failure, flunking classes, blowing money, calling it Sigrid being Sigrid. My straight A's earned a nod, maybe a cheap dinner. Her chaos always stole the spotlight, leaving me to fight for scraps of their attention. That loneliness forged my resolve, but it also hid a deeper truth: my family's love came with a price I'd soon refuse to pay. As the flames devoured my diploma, the room froze, guests gasping, my mother's eyes avoiding mine. My sister Sigrid smirked, certain I'd break. But I didn't. I stood there, heart pounding, and felt a strange calm wash over me. I smiled, not out of defeat, but defiance. Why? Because I knew something they didn't. My grandfather, Gideon, had prepared me for this betrayal. His wisdom, his trust, his legacy, they were mine, and no amount of their anger could take that away. In that moment, I wasn't just walking away, I was stepping into my power. This is the story of the betrayal that changed everything. Have you ever been stabbed in the back by the people you trusted most? Felt the sting of family turning against you when you needed them most? I did, and I turned their attack into my victory. Stay with me to uncover how I faced my parents' demands, my sister's envy, and a burning diploma to claim what was rightfully mine. You won't believe what happened next. Share your story in the comments below, and keep watching to see how I fought back, and won. Don't miss it. Growing up in the quiet suburbs of California, I was the kid who carried the weight of expectations, my own, not my parents'. While other teens hung out at malls or snuck into parties, I was hunched over textbooks, chasing honor roll like it was oxygen. My sister, Sigrid, 5 years older, lived in a different world. She was the spark, the chaos, the one who could charm anyone with a smile. But charm didn't get her grades. When she flunked her senior year, barely scraping by, my parents didn't blink. They hired expensive tutors, threw her a graduation party with a live band and caterers, celebrating her like she'd conquered the world. My straight A's, semester after semester. They earned me a pat on the back, maybe a burger at a chain restaurant if I was lucky. "That's just Sigrid being Sigrid," they'd say, brushing off her failures like dust. To them, her stumbles were endearing, my successes were expected. I was the responsible one, the one who didn't need attention, or so they thought. But every overlooked report card, every quiet, "good job," carved a hollow space inside me. I learned early that love in our house wasn't equal. Sigrid was their sun, I was just a shadow, working twice as hard to be seen. That unfairness wasn't just a moment, it was the rhythm of my childhood, a constant hum of, "Why her, not me?" But it also lit a fire in me, a determination to prove I was more than their afterthought, even if they'd never see it. When I got a partial scholarship to Stanford, it felt like a lifeline, a chance to build my own future. But dreams come with a price tag, and mine was steep. To cover tuition, I worked 2 part-time jobs, mornings as a barista, evenings tutoring high school kids in math. My shifts left me bleary-eyed, my hands smelling of coffee grounds, but I kept going. When I asked my parents for help, just a little to ease the load, Dad sat me down for a lecture on financial independence. His words stung, "You're smart, Eloan. Figure it out." Meanwhile, Sigrid was crisscrossing the country, chasing whims from New Orleans to Seattle, her travels funded by Mom and Dad's blank checks. "She's finding herself," they'd say, as if my late-night study sessions were less noble. Their favorite refrain echoed in my head, "Why can't you be more like your sister? Like her?" I was juggling 18-hour days, maintaining a 3.9 GPA, applying for every scholarship I could find, while Sigrid racked up credit card debt they quietly paid off. The unfairness burned, but I swallowed it. I wasn't working for their approval anymore. Every paycheck, every all-nighter, was a brick in the foundation of my future. I was building something they couldn't touch, something Sigrid's charm could never buy. But the cost wasn't just money, it was the slow realization that my parents' love was conditional, tied to who needed them most. And that was never me. That truth hardened my resolve, pushing me forward even as it broke something inside, a piece of hope I hadn't known I still carried. My senior year, I stood on the auditorium stage, valedictorian, my heart pounding as I gripped my speech. I'd worked for this moment, years of late nights, skipped parties, and quiet sacrifices. I scanned the crowd, searching for Mom and Dad, hoping, just once, they'd show up for me. But their seats were empty. Later, I learned why. Sigrid had gotten into a bar fight downtown, and they'd rushed to bail her out, leaving me to speak to a room of strangers. As I delivered my speech, my voice steady despite the ache, I felt their absence like a physical weight. That day, I realized I'd always be second place, I told myself, the words sinking deep. It hurt, God, it hurt, but it also woke me up. Their priorities were clear, Sigrid's chaos trumped my triumphs every time. Standing there, under the harsh stage lights, I made a vow. I wasn't proving myself to them anymore. This was for me, for the girl who'd fought her way to that podium alone. That moment didn't break me, it made me stronger. I walked off that stage taller, not because of applause, but because I'd chosen myself. The pain of their absence lingered, a bruise I'd carry into adulthood, but it fueled my drive. I'd build a life they couldn't ignore, not for their praise, but for my own peace. That empty auditorium taught me a truth I'd carry to Stanford and beyond, my worth wasn't theirs to define. It was mine, forged in the quiet moments they'd never see, and I'd protect it fiercely, no matter what came next. At Stanford, I poured everything into my studies, carving a path through sleepless nights and endless deadlines. Maintaining a 3.9 GPA wasn't just about grades, it was my rebellion against a family that never saw me. Between barista shifts and tutoring gigs, I'd collapse into bed, only to wake up and do it again. Every scholarship application, every extra credit assignment, was a declaration, I was enough, even if my parents disagreed. They'd never understand the grind, the way each small win felt like a victory over their neglect. "Why can't you be more like Sigrid?" still echoed, but I drowned it out with the rhythm of my own ambition. Every late-night study session was for me, and for someone who believed in me more than they ever did. Grandpa Gideon, with his quiet pride and steady wisdom, saw the fire in me. His faith was my anchor, a reminder that I wasn't alone, even when my parents' calls went unanswered, their focus fixed on Sigrid's latest crisis. At Stanford, I wasn't just earning a degree, I was building a fortress, a life where their favoritism couldn't reach me. The exhaustion, the stress, they were worth it. Each step forward was a promise kept to myself, a testament to the strength I'd found in their shadows. I wasn't chasing their approval anymore. I was crafting a legacy, one that would outlast their indifference, rooted in the belief that I deserved more than scraps. And deep down, I knew Gideon was watching, his voice in my heart whispering, "Keep going, Eloan. You're exactly who I knew you'd be." Every Sunday, I'd escape the cold indifference of my parents' house for the warmth of Grandpa Gideon's oak-shaded home. He was a self-made man, a construction tycoon who built his empire from nothing but grit and vision. At 15, I'd sit at his dining table, balancing his company books, my pencil scratching numbers as he guided me with a steady hand. "You've got a head for business, Eloan," he'd say, his eyes crinkling with pride. "You understand the value of things, not just their price." Those words sank deep, a lifeline in a world where my efforts went unseen. Later, we'd move to his porch, sipping lemonade, the tart sweetness grounding me as we talked, not just about profits or losses, but about life, integrity, the kind of person I wanted to be. My parents dismissed these visits as humoring a lonely old man, but they were my sanctuary. Gideon saw something in me my parents never did: grit, focus, a spark he recognized from his own youth. He didn't just teach me numbers, he taught me worth, my own, not measured by their approval or my sister's shadow. Those Sundays were sacred, stitching together the pieces of a heart worn thin by neglect. Gideon's belief in me was a quiet revolution, reshaping how I saw myself. I wasn't just the responsible daughter, the invisible one. I was Eloan, capable of building something lasting, just like him. Each visit fortified me, preparing me for a storm I didn't yet see coming, one that would test everything he'd taught me to hold dear. As I grew older, Gideon's hands began to tremble, the first signs of Parkinson's stealing the steadiness I'd always known. It was subtle at first, a slight shake as he poured lemonade, but it changed everything. He grew quieter, more reflective, and started confiding in me about truths I wasn't ready to hear. "Your parents are changing," he said one Sunday, his voice heavy with disappointment. "They're visiting more, bringing casseroles I never eat, offering to manage my finances." I saw it too, Mom's forced smiles, Dad's sudden interest in Gideon's bank accounts. "They're counting my money before I'm gone," he told me, his eyes sharp despite the disease creeping in. Those words stuck with me, a cold weight in my chest. I'd always known their favoritism for Sigrid, but this was different, calculated, greedy, a betrayal of the man who'd given them so much. Gideon wasn't fooled. He saw through their casseroles and hollow concern, their visits timed with whispers about his wealth. It hurt him, I could tell, but he never let it break him. Instead, he turned to me, trusting me with his fears, his legacy. "Family and money are a volatile mix," he warned, his voice firm despite the tremor. "Be ready, Eloan. They'll come for you too." I didn't want to believe it, but his certainty planted a seed of caution. Those conversations reshaped me, hardening my resolve to protect what mattered. Gideon's trust wasn't just a gift, it was a responsibility. As his body weakened, his wisdom grew sharper, arming me for a battle I'd face alone, one he knew was coming long before I did. On my 18th birthday, Gideon called me to his study, his movements slower but his eyes as fierce as ever. He handed me a leather-bound journal, my initials embossed in gold on the cover, its pages crisp and waiting. "Write your dreams here, Eloan," he said, his voice soft but commanding. "Your values, your truths. Your heart will guide you when others try to pull you down." I ran my fingers over the leather, feeling its weight, not just as an object but as a promise. That journal became my anchor, a place to pour my hopes, my fears, the things I couldn't say out loud. I wrote about Stanford, about building a life beyond my parents' neglect, about making Gideon proud. Each entry felt like a conversation with him, even when miles separated us. He didn't just give me a book, he gave me a tool to navigate the chaos he knew was coming. "People will try to dim your light," he told me, his hand resting on mine, trembling but warm. "This will remind you who you are." I didn't know how right he was, how soon I'd need those pages to ground me. The journal was more than paper, it was Gideon's faith in me, etched in every blank page, urging me to define my own path. As I left his house that day, clutching it to my chest, I felt stronger, not because of what I'd written, but because of what he saw in me. That gift carried me through the darkest days, a quiet rebellion against a family that would try to tear me down, a reminder that my worth was mine to claim. During my sophomore year at Stanford, Gideon's health took a sharper turn, and he asked me to help organize his estate. I drove to his house, nervous, sitting with him and his lawyer, Ezra Goldstein, as we sorted through decades of documents. It felt heavy, like we were preparing for a goodbye I wasn't ready to face. I never asked about his will. It felt wrong, invasive, like I was prying into something sacred. But Gideon brought it up himself, his voice clear despite the tremor in his hands. "I'm leaving you the house and most of my savings," he said plainly, his eyes locked on mine. "You're the only one who'll build something lasting, Eloan." I tried to protest, to say it was too much, but he stopped me. "It's my choice," he said, firm. "I earned it, and I decide where it goes. Your parents, Sigrid, they'd burn through it in a year." His words weren't cruel, just honest, a truth I'd seen in their greed. Helping with his estate wasn't just paperwork, it was a masterclass in foresight, in protecting what matters. Gideon trusted me with his legacy, not because I was his favorite, but because he saw my heart, my discipline, my respect for what he'd built. Those months deepened our bond, each meeting a reminder of his belief in me. "You're stronger than you know," he told me once, his hand shaking as he signed a document. I carried that strength forward, unaware how soon I'd need it. Gideon wasn't just preparing his estate, he was preparing me, arming me with the tools to stand tall when my family's betrayal would try to break me. The morning of my Stanford graduation, May 30th, I woke with pride burning in my chest, a fire fueled by years of sacrifice. As I slipped into my cap and gown, I imagined Grandpa Gideon's smile, his voice saying, "You did it, Eloan." He'd passed 3 months earlier, and his absence ached, but I carried him with me as I walked to the ceremony. My parents, Lenora and Thane, arrived late, barely sliding into their seats before the procession began. Mom fussed with her hair, adjusting it like the university president's speech was a photo op. Dad kept checking his watch, his impatience louder than the applause around us. When my name was called, I crossed the stage, diploma in hand, heart pounding with triumph. Their claps were weak, obligatory, a faint echo against the cheers of strangers. I scanned their faces, Mom's forced smile, Dad's distracted nod, and felt a familiar sting. This wasn't new. Their disinterest had shadowed every milestone, from honor roll to valedictorian. But today, I told myself, this was for me and Grandpa. Gideon had believed in me when they didn't, his faith a shield against their neglect. I'd earned this moment, not for their pride, but for mine. As I posed for photos, Mom rushed me through, insisting we head to their house for the party. "The caterers need us," she said, her voice clipped. I nodded, ignoring the knot in my stomach. I wanted to believe they'd planned something special, a rare gesture of care. But deep down, I knew better. Their indifference wasn't just an oversight, it was a pattern, woven into every year of my life. Yet I held on to a sliver of hope, clinging to the idea that maybe, just this once, they'd see me. That hope was my mistake, a fragile thread about to snap under the weight of a betrayal I never saw coming. The drive to my parents' house felt endless, 2 hours from Stanford, my mind replaying the ceremony's highs and lows. My roommate Vesper's texts buzzed my phone, each one tightening the knot in my gut. "Something's off at your party," she wrote. "Your sister's talking about a surprise." I brushed it off, telling myself it was just Sigrid being dramatic, but unease settled in. When I pulled into the driveway, the house glowed with Stanford blue and red streamers, a "Congratulations Graduate" banner stretched across the porch. It looked perfect, but it felt wrong. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Lenora flitted between guests, her laugh too loud, snapping at a caterer over misplaced napkins. Thane stood at the bar, pouring whiskey with a heavy hand, his eyes avoiding mine. Relatives I barely knew, uncles, cousins, family friends, greeted me with odd, searching looks, their congratulations laced with something I couldn't place. Vesper pulled me aside, whispering, "This doesn't feel like a party. It's like they're waiting for something." I nodded, my pulse quickening. Sigrid, dressed in a cocktail gown too fancy for the occasion, raised a champagne glass in a mock toast. To the golden child, she called out, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The crowd chuckled, but her eyes locked on mine, sharp and challenging. I forced a smile, weaving through hugs and handshakes, but the whispers followed me. Aunt Marigold's, big changes coming, and Uncle Ansel's awkward pat on my shoulder felt loaded, like they knew something I didn't. In the kitchen, I caught Mom's sister, Cressida, murmuring to her husband, "Do you think she suspects?" They froze when they saw me. The house was decked out in Stanford colors, but it wasn't a celebration, it was a trap, carefully set, waiting to spring. And I was walking right into it, blind to the betrayal my own family had orchestrated, their plan about to unfold in front of everyone I loved. The room fell silent when Thane clinked his glass, his voice booming with false warmth. "Friends, family, thank you for celebrating Eloan's graduation," he began, raising his scotch. "But today's about more than a degree. It's about family unity." My stomach dropped. Lenora stepped forward, clutching a folder, her smile tight. "We've prepared some documents," she said, her voice pitching higher. "To ensure fairness in Grandpa Gideon's estate." Fairness? The word hung heavy as she opened the folder, revealing papers that would split Gideon's inheritance, his house, $2.4 million, equally between me and Sigrid. "Sigrid needs this," Mom said, her eyes pleading. "You've got your degree, your future. She's struggling." Sigrid stepped closer, her voice soft but rehearsed. "I loved Grandpa too, Eloan. Don't I deserve some security?" The room watched, expectant, some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably. My blood ran cold. They wanted me to sign away what Gideon had entrusted to me, the legacy he'd built and chosen me to carry. I saw it clearly now, their sudden calls after his death, Sigrid's birthday text after years of silence. It was all a setup. "No," I said, my voice steady, cutting through their performance. The silence deepened, a collective intake of breath. "What?" Thane's facade cracked, his eyes narrowing. "I won't sign," I repeated. "Grandpa made his choice for a reason." Lenora's smile faltered. "You don't understand, sweetheart. This is for the family." I shook my head. "You mean for Sigrid? Because she's always come first." Sigrid's face twisted, her crocodile tears gone. "You selfish," she started, but I held my ground. That's when Dad snapped. His hand shot out, snatching my diploma from the side table where I'd left it. "You think you're better than us?" he roared, his voice shaking the room. The crowd froze, their eyes darting between us, but I stood tall, refusing to break under the weight of their greed. Thane's rage boiled over, his fist clenched around my diploma as he strode to the fireplace. "You don't deserve this," he shouted, thrusting it into the flames. The paper curled, blackened, ash rising as my 4 years of sacrifice burned before my eyes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My cousin Isolde stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Uncle Thane, stop." But Lenora grabbed her arm, hissing, "Stay out of it." Isolde shrank back, her eyes meeting mine, apologetic but helpless. A guest near me whispered to another, "They've been planning this for months," their words slicing through the chaos. I overheard, and it clicked, every forced smile, every odd glance, had been part of their scheme. But I didn't crumble. I stood there, watching the flames, and felt a strange calm settle over me. My heart pounded, but my face stayed composed, almost serene. I smiled, not out of weakness, but defiance. Grandpa Gideon had prepared me for this. His warnings, his trust, his foresight, they were my armor. This wasn't about a piece of paper, Stanford could replace it. This was about their masks slipping, revealing the resentment they'd harbored all along. Sigrid's smirk faltered, Mom's hands shook, but I was unshaken. Ezra Goldstein, Gideon's lawyer, appeared at my side, his presence steady. "Let's go," he said quietly, guiding me toward the door. As I moved, I caught Thane's confused glare, his triumph fading. "Thank you," I said softly, my voice carrying, "for showing everyone who you really are." The room erupted behind me, shouts, mom's wails, relatives arguing, but I kept walking. I wasn't broken. I was free. Gideon's lessons, his faith in me, had built a strength they couldn't touch. As I stepped into the night, leaving their chaos behind, I knew this betrayal wasn't my end. It was my beginning, a chance to claim the legacy Grandpa had entrusted to me, and I was ready to fight for it. As I left the chaos of my graduation party, the weight of my family's betrayal pressed against my chest. Ezra Goldstein, Grandpa Gideon's lawyer, drove me to a quiet diner, its neon sign flickering in the dusk. My phone buzzed relentlessly, 37 missed calls, texts from relatives, friends, and my parents' furious demands to return. I silenced it, the quiet a small act of defiance. Over coffee, Ezra's steady voice cut through my haze. He explained Gideon's foresight, his meticulous plan to protect me. "Your grandfather knew they'd come for you," he said, his eyes kind but firm. "He set up a trust, naming you the sole beneficiary, with conditions to shield it from challenges." Gideon had undergone regular psychological evaluations, each one documenting his sharp mind, even as Parkinson's stole his strength. A $250,000 legal defense fund ensured his wishes would stand, no matter how fiercely my parents fought. "He planned for everything," Ezra added, sliding a folder across the table, its pages heavy with Gideon's resolve. I sat there, stunned, my coffee growing cold. Grandpa had seen this storm coming, my parents' greed, Sigrid's entitlement, and built a fortress around me. His trust wasn't just money, it was his faith in my strength, his belief that I'd honor what he'd built. The diner's hum faded as I realized the depth of his love. He'd known they'd try to break me, but he'd armed me to stand tall. In that moment, the betrayal stung less, not because it hurt less, but because Gideon's wisdom held me up. I wasn't alone. Grandpa knew they'd come for me, and he'd made sure I was ready. Ezra's next words hit like a punch. My parents, Lenora and Thane, hadn't just pressured me, they'd committed fraud. Months before Gideon's death, they'd taken a second mortgage on his house, using a power of attorney meant only for medical decisions. "The bank's investigating," Ezra said, his voice grim. "It's likely illegal." I stared at him, the diner's warmth turning cold. They'd been stealing from Grandpa while he was still alive, counting his wealth as their own before his heart stopped beating. But there was more. Ezra leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Sigrid's in deep trouble. She owes $250,000 in gambling debts to people you don't cross." My sister's smirk at the party flashed in my mind, her mock toast hiding a desperation I hadn't seen. "That's why they pushed so hard," Ezra continued. "They need Gideon's money to bail her out." The pieces fell into place, their sudden kindness after Grandpa's death, the party's staged drama. They weren't just greedy, they were desperate, trapped by Sigrid's recklessness and their own enabling. I felt a surge of anger, not just at them, but at the years I'd spent believing their neglect was my fault. They'd built a house of lies, and now it was crumbling. Yet beneath the rage, a flicker of pity stirred, for Sigrid, lost in her addiction, and for my parents, blind to their own failures. But pity wasn't enough to soften my resolve. Gideon had entrusted me with his legacy, not them. They'd betrayed him as much as me, stealing from a man who'd given them everything. Their desperation didn't justify their cruelty. I leaned back, the truth settling heavy. They'd been scheming before Grandpa died, and I'd never let them take what he'd fought to protect. Alone in my hotel room that night, I couldn't sleep, the echo of my burning diploma still searing my mind. I pulled out the leather-bound journal Gideon had given me at 18, its pages filled with my dreams, my fears, my truths. As I flipped through, a folded letter slipped out, hidden in the back, Gideon's shaky handwriting on the envelope. My heart stopped. I opened it carefully, his words a whisper from beyond. My dearest Eloan, it began. If you're reading this, your family has shown their true colors. I'm sorry. Trust your heart, not their guilt. Tears blurred the ink as I read on. He warned me of their greed, their attempts to manipulate, but urged me to stand firm. You're not selfish for protecting what's yours. You're honoring me. I clutched the letter, grappling with a sudden wave of guilt over Sigrid's debts. Part of me wanted to help her, to pull her from the hole she'd dug, but Gideon's words anchored me. Helping her now meant betraying everything he'd built, everything he'd trusted me to carry forward. Sigrid's pain was real, but so was mine, and I couldn't sacrifice my future to fix her mistakes. The letter was Gideon's final gift, a reminder that love doesn't mean enabling. I traced his signature, feeling his presence in the quiet room. He'd known this moment would come, known I'd waver, and left me this compass to guide me back. I chose self-protection, not out of spite, but out of respect, for Gideon, for myself. I wanted to help Sigrid someday, but not at the cost of everything Grandpa built. His wisdom steadied me, turning my guilt into resolve. I wasn't just his granddaughter, I was his legacy, and I'd fight to keep it whole. The next morning, Ezra called, his voice tight with urgency. There's been trouble at Gideon's house, he said. My heart sank. The security company reported 2 attempted break-ins since the party, one just hours after I left. The first time, your father's car was spotted nearby, Ezra added. Last night, they caught your parents on camera, trying to force the back door. I gripped the phone, picturing Lenora and Thane skulking in the dark, desperate to plunder what Gideon had left me. They'd smashed an antique stained glass window, a piece of his legacy, in their haste to get inside. What were they after? I asked, though I knew, artwork, books, anything they could sell to cover Sigrid's debts. Their audacity stunned me, but it also clarified their character. They wouldn't stop, not until they'd taken everything or been forced to. Ezra suggested immediate action, and I authorized a full security upgrade, cameras, alarms, a patrol team to guard the house. We'll protect it, he assured me, but his words carried a warning, this was war. I felt a chill, not of fear, but of determination. They'd crossed a line, defiling Gideon's home, his memory. But I wasn't the girl they'd overlooked anymore. I was Eloan, Gideon's chosen heir, and I'd matched their desperation with my resolve. They wouldn't stop, I told myself, staring at the journal on my hotel bed. But neither would I. Each move they made only strengthened my commitment to honor Gideon's wishes. His house wasn't just property, it was his life's work, a symbol of the values he'd instilled in me. I'd defend it, not just for him, but for the future he dreamed I'd build, one they'd never understand. A week after the graduation party, I sat in Ezra Goldstein's office, the air thick with anticipation. My parents, Thane and Lenora, arrived with Sigrid and their lawyer, Lionel Warwick, a man whose sharp suit matched his sharper tongue. They were here to contest Grandpa Gideon's will, their faces a mask of righteous indignation. Lionel launched into their case, his voice dripping with accusation. Eloan manipulated a frail old man, he declared, gesturing at me like I was a criminal. Gideon was vulnerable, easily swayed by her influence. Lenora dabbed at her eyes theatrically, a performance for the room, while Thane nodded gravely, as if they were saving Grandpa's legacy. Sigrid sat smugly, her arms crossed, certain they'd win. They painted me as a schemer, Grandpa as a victim, their words twisting years of love into something sinister. I clenched my hands, fighting the urge to shout back. Their lies stung, but I stayed silent, trusting Ezra's steady presence beside me. My parents had spent years overlooking me, but now they cast me as the villain to justify their greed. It wasn't just about money, it was about control, about punishing me for daring to stand up to them. The room felt smaller with every word, their accusations piling like stones on my chest. But I held Gideon's journal in my mind, its pages a reminder of his faith in me. They thought they'd rewrite his wishes, erase his trust in me with their crocodile tears and hired lawyer. They didn't know what was coming. Gideon had seen through their hearts long before this day, and his truth was about to unravel their carefully spun lies. Ezra stood, his calm cutting through the room's tension. "Before we proceed," he said, "Gideon left something for us." He pressed play on a laptop, and Grandpa's face filled a screen on the wall, his eyes clear and resolute. The video was recorded 18 months ago, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "If you're watching this," Gideon began, "it means my family's challenging my will. Let me be clear." He exposed Sigrid's gambling addiction, her debts piling up while she hid behind charm. Lenora and Thane enabled her, he continued, paying off her mistakes while neglecting Eloan's strength. My parents froze, their faces draining of color. Sigrid's smirk vanished, her hands gripping the table. Gideon's words were unflinching, "Eloan is my heir because she's earned it, through grit, integrity, and respect for what I've built." He revealed a no-contest clause, a legal hammer that would revoke their $50,000 inheritances if they fought further. "Challenge my will," he warned, "and you get nothing." Grandpa's voice filled the room, silencing their lies with the weight of his truth. I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness, but from awe. Even in death, he was protecting me, his foresight a shield against their greed. Thane's jaw clenched, Lenora's handkerchief stilled, and Lionel Warwick shifted uncomfortably, his strategy crumbling. Sigrid stared at the screen, as if willing Gideon to take it back. But he didn't. His gaze, even through a recording, was unyielding, a testament to his clarity of mind. The video ended, leaving a heavy silence. Grandpa had spoken, and no amount of their theatrics could undo his will. In that moment, I felt his presence, his strength flowing through me, ready to face whatever they'd throw next. As the video's echo faded, the room buzzed with tension. My uncle, Ansel Holt, caught my eye from across the table, his subtle nod a quiet signal of support. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it warmed me, a hint that not all my family had turned against me. Ansel had always been kind, a steady presence at Gideon's Sunday dinners, and his gesture felt like a promise of allyship, a light in the storm. Sigrid, though, leaned close, her breath hot against my ear. "You'll regret this," she whispered, her voice laced with spite, her facade of victimhood gone. I met her gaze, unflinching, her threat only sharpening my resolve. Ezra cleared his throat, drawing attention. "One more thing," he said, reaching into his briefcase. He handed me a small key, its surface engraved with Eloan's future in Gideon's elegant script. "This opens a hidden safe in Gideon's house," he explained. My heart skipped. The key felt heavy, not just metal but a symbol of Grandpa's trust. That key felt like Grandpa's hand on my shoulder, steadying me as my family's glares bore down. Sigrid's whisper lingered, but the key drowned it out, a tangible piece of Gideon's belief in me. Ansel's nod, Ezra's calm, the key's weight, they anchored me in a room thick with hostility. I tucked the key into my pocket, its edges pressing against my palm, a reminder of the legacy I'd been chosen to protect. Sigrid's threat was empty, she was unraveling, but I was growing stronger. Grandpa had foreseen this moment, not just their greed, but my courage. The key wasn't just for a safe, it was for my future, one I'd build despite their venom, with allies like Ansel quietly standing behind me. Lionel Warwick gathered his papers, his confidence shattered by Gideon's video. Thane stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "We're done here," he growled, accepting his $50,000 bequest with a scowl. Lenora followed, her face a mask of fury, her theatrical tears replaced by cold resentment. They stormed out, their footsteps echoing down the hall, defeated but unrepentant. The room felt lighter without them, but Sigrid lingered, her eyes fixed on me. Her facade, the charm, the smirks, crumbled, revealing something raw beneath. For a moment, I saw her pain, the weight of her addiction, the desperation that had driven her to this. Her shoulders sagged, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse. She looked lost, a shadow of the sister who'd once stolen every spotlight. I almost reached out, a reflex born of years hoping she'd change. But her whisper, "You'll regret this," rang in my ears, her spite cutting too deep to forgive yet. I stayed still, letting her walk away, her heels clicking softly as she left. The door closed, and silence settled. I gripped the key in my pocket, its engraving grounding me. Gideon had known this would happen, known Sigrid's pain would pull at my heart. But he'd also known I'd need to protect myself first. Her suffering was real, but so was mine, and I couldn't heal her at the cost of my own strength. For a moment, I mourned the sister she might have been, but I didn't waver. Grandpa's trust was mine to honor, not hers to claim. As I stood in Ezra's office, alone but unshaken, I felt the weight of victory, not over them, but for me, for Gideon, for the future we'd build together, even with him gone. The key engraved with Eloan's future felt warm in my hand as I knelt in Grandpa Gideon's study, the hidden safe tucked behind his oak bookshelf. My heart raced as I turned the lock, the click echoing in the quiet room. Inside, I found stock certificates worth $5 million, their crisp edges a testament to Gideon's foresight. But it was the journal beside them that stopped my breath, pages filled with his steady script, documenting my parents' greed, their schemes to claim his wealth before he died. Each entry was a quiet indictment, proof of their betrayal, but also a love letter to me. Grandpa didn't just leave me money, I realized, tracing his words. He left me proof, and the courage to move forward. Those pages weren't just evidence, they were his voice, urging me to stand tall, to build the life he'd envisioned. The safe held more than wealth, it held his trust, his belief that I could rise above their lies. I closed it gently, the journal pressed to my chest, feeling Gideon's strength flow through me. This wasn't an end, but a beginning, a foundation for a legacy I'd make my own. 6 months later, I stood in Gideon's house, my house now, its walls alive with fresh paint and restored woodwork. I'd poured my heart into renovating it, honoring every detail Grandpa loved. With his wealth, I launched a consulting firm, guiding family businesses through inheritance disputes, turning my pain into expertise. I also founded a financial literacy foundation, teaching others the lessons Gideon taught me about value, not just price. Sigrid, funded by a trust Grandpa left for her treatment, entered rehab for her gambling addiction. Her letters arrived, hesitant apologies scrawled in shaky ink, but reconciliation felt distant, her spite still too fresh. I wished her healing, but my focus was forward. I'm building the life Grandpa envisioned, I told myself, one step at a time. Each project, each client, each student in my foundation's classes, was a brick in that vision. The house wasn't just a home, it was a symbol of resilience, a place where Gideon's legacy thrived. My parents faced foreclosure, their schemes unraveling, but I didn't gloat. I was too busy creating, growing, living. Gideon's trust wasn't a burden, it was a blueprint, and I was following it with every determined step. As a young female CEO, I walked into boardrooms where skepticism hung thick. Investors raised eyebrows, colleagues whispered about my age, my gender, doubting I could lead. But I'd faced worse, my family's betrayal had forged me in fire. With Gideon's lessons and my Stanford degree, I earned their respect, my expertise silencing doubts. Contracts piled up, my firm's reputation growing as I navigated clients through their own family dramas. But success wasn't enough. I wanted to give back, to honor Gideon's belief in second chances. So I launched a mentorship program for estranged youth, kids like me who'd felt invisible. In Gideon's name, we taught them resilience, self-worth, skills to build their own paths. I turned my pain into purpose, I realized, watching a shy teen give her first presentation, her eyes bright with pride. Helping others find their strength healed something in me, too. Each mentor session, each success story, was a tribute to Grandpa, proof that betrayal didn't define me. My scars became my strength, guiding others to rise above their own. The program grew, a ripple of Gideon's legacy, and I knew he'd be proud, his vision living through every life we touched. I stood on my porch at dusk, Gideon's journal in hand, its pages worn from months of reading. The house glowed behind me, a haven I'd made my own. My family wasn't the one I'd been born into, not Thane, Lenora, or even Sigrid, whose path was her own to walk. My family was chosen, Ezra Goldstein, whose steady guidance never wavered, Aunt Marigold, whose fierce hugs held me through the worst, Vesper, my roommate turned sister, who'd stood by me when my world burned. Family isn't blood, I whispered to the fading light. It's the people who see you, lift you, and fight for you. They'd seen my strength when I doubted it, lifted me when I stumbled, fought for me when my own parents turned away. The journal held my dreams, but these people held my heart. Gideon had taught me this, too, love is earned, not owed. As stars emerged, I felt whole, not because I'd won, but because I'd chosen. My legacy wasn't just wealth or work, it was connection, purpose, a life built on truth. With my chosen family beside me, I was ready to write the next chapter, fearless and free. Standing on my porch at sunset, Gideon's journal open in my hands, I felt the weight of my journey settle into something new, peace. Grandpa taught me that standing your ground isn't selfish, it's survival, a quiet act of claiming your worth. My family, Thane, Lenora, Sigrid, tried to break me, to take what Grandpa entrusted to me. But I learned family isn't just blood. It's the people who lift you up, who see your strength when you falter. I chose mine, Ezra's steady guidance, Marigold's fierce loyalty, Vesper's unwavering support. They carried me through the fire of betrayal, and I'm stronger for it. Gideon's legacy isn't just his house or his wealth, it's the courage he instilled in me to build my own path. His voice still guides me, a whisper in every choice, reminding me I'm enough. I've found my footing, and I'm ready to soar. My story doesn't end here, it's just the beginning. I'm taking it to a TEDx stage soon, sharing what I've learned about family dynamics, betrayal, and resilience. I want to help others find their voice, to stand tall against those who try to dim their light. Grandpa Gideon showed me how to turn pain into purpose, and now I'm passing that forward. Whether you've faced family drama or fought your own battles, know that your story matters. I'm sharing mine to inspire you to claim yours, to build a life that's true to you. Join me on this journey, there's more to come, more stories of triumph, more lessons from the scars we carry. I'm not just a Loan, Gideon's granddaughter, I'm a woman forging a legacy of strength. Follow along, share your truth, and let's keep growing together, one courageous step at a time. Have you faced family betrayal, felt the sting of those you trusted turning away? Share your story in the comments below, your voice deserves to be heard. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell for more stories of resilience that remind us we're not alone. Check out our Tales of Triumph playlist for more journeys like mine, where pain becomes power. Thank you for listening, for being part of this moment. Let's keep building our own legacies, rooted in strength, not shadows. Together, we can rise above, just as Grandpa Gideon knew I would. Keep watching, keep sharing, and let's inspire each other.